You know, I find it funny how YouTubers went from being basically the anti-celebrity to then such a big and normal thing that they just became the celebrities. And that leads me into today's video. TheOdd1sOut is a YouTube animator, and if not the biggest YouTube animator that has really almost defined YouTube animation. A lot of the animations we see today, I honestly think wouldn't exist without Jane Animations and TheOdd1sOut. And recently, TheOdd1sOut has gotten the opportunity to become a lot bigger than a YouTuber. And by bigger, I mean a whole dang Netflix show. So today I'm going to be exploring the products TheOdd1sOut has produced and decide if this is just desperate money schemes or just a guy using his relevancy to his advantage. So let's get into it. Like, subscribe. This video will probably be nice. I'm sorry if I get a little mean, but it's all in good fun. Starting off, we got TheOdd1sOut's books. I remember getting the first book so quickly once it came out. It was during my prime TheOdd1sOut phase. Like, this was one of the first things James made that even I was thinking, yeah, this guy is going to be a marketing juggernaut. And I was obviously right. They were selling this at Target along with plushies of him, these weird balls of him. I don't think many YouTubers can get in a store like Target, so that's pretty impressive. Dude, I love TheOdd1sOut's balls! But the book is sadly really lazy, and it's not like quiet about it either. Like, no, the first few pages right off the bat is just word for word of his videos, which I think defeats the point of having a book and defeats the point of having YouTube videos. And granted, it has some nice pictures, but whoever made the layout of this book had to be wearing drunk goggles, and I refuse to believe otherwise. Like, how do you mess this up? Just boom, there, you're done, you're done. Thankfully, the second book is actually really good and not as lazy, so I guess the team behind the first book learned their lesson and actually took into account the complaints of the first one. The cover art is really recognizable and appealing too. There's some really funny pages that kind of feel like puzzles. The opener of the book about choosing a font is actually so creative. There's a really cool full page drawing of some villains. He talks about robots taking over the world, and overall, it's a pretty nice read. This book kind of reminded me of a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, and I'm gonna take a guess and say that this book probably had more sales than the Wimpy Kid book that came out then. Honestly, I think this book is better than The Deep End. The layout issues are still a little apparent. Like, there's this one page that says something and then shows the image that correlates with that sentence on the next page after another image, so that kind of confused me. Board game. Can't Catch Harry is one of those things you get for Christmas from like a grandma because your mom told them to buy it, and you're like, wow, that's so cool, and then you forget its existence in one day. But as for a product itself, I actually think it's really cool. Board games surprisingly have fit really well with YouTube animators. I remember when Tomska made an Astif card game, it was so appealing. And I think Can't Catch Harry is also pretty nice to look at. I like the little Monopoly-esque characters. But as for the playability, it really isn't all that much fun, and apparently this game is basically just the board game Spoons. But don't take my word for it, because I barely play board games or card games. I just play Uno occasionally. Now, the mobile game is honestly the one product James has made that I feel has actual issues than just being a sellout, and that is just the sheer quality of this game. This man is basically a voice actor. Why does it sound like the developers took already existing muffled audio clips and called it a day? Awesome! And then my other big issue, which I've seen pointed out a lot, is the fact James has literally made a whole video complaining about mobile games and how much of a scam they are.
My proposal to fix this scam is to ban mobile games entirely and everyone play Tetris 99.
Yep, this video is an announcement / advertisement that I have a mobile game.
You were the chosen one!
But he didn't even make this game, he just signed his name, so he gets a pass. Now it's time for the biggest product James and his team has ever made, and probably the one he's most excited about, and I would be too, is his very own Netflix show, which is just honestly really exciting for a YouTube animator to have their own show. We saw that recently with Smiling Friends. When I first saw the trailer for TheOddBalls, I thought it looked really promising, and I was excited to see he was gonna maybe introduce a more dedicated plot with the whole lab thing going on. I thought that would be a lot more interesting than just a random slice of life series with his character. So it was cool to see an overarching story, even if it isn't entirely utilized at all, but we'll get into that. I think this show really strives the most with its visuals. This show is basically being carried by its animation. The animation in this show is so creative and clever, the movements are really fluent but not too annoying. The character designs are really good, which is kind of a good and bad thing because these characters makes James' character look way much more boring in comparison. Like, you got this awesome crocodile, this fly character, and then you got James. A lot of the character designs remind me a lot of the show Hilda. That might just be me though. And the show sometimes pulls a SpongeBob and does really detailed close-ups, which is super fun to look at and kind of keeps the show different. The backgrounds are really nice too, the side characters are unique, and the animators managed to keep this same visually pleasing style for 12 20-minute episodes, which is much more than I would ever expect. But that's kind of where the positives stop. This show sadly falls really flat in one of the most important parts, which is the dialogue and writing. The dialogue in this show tries so hard to reach a balance, but it just can't, and it makes it really hard for me to take it seriously. I don't know if that's just because it's associated with James, so I'm just used to hearing him in videos, but I also think it's really apparent that some lines are way better than others. Some of the characters' reactions in this show are just so bizarre and annoying. Sometimes James and the crocodile will react way too dramatically where it starts to feel like a show only for toddlers and it gets really irritating. And sometimes they will react so boringly to something they should actually be dramatic about. Like James' character gets burnt and this was his best attempt at a scream.
Oh, ow, ow!
Where is the energy? And the balance not only struggles in the show with the dialogue, but the plots for each episode. Some episodes are actually really interesting and work in this world. I really like the second episode where his mom turned him into a phone for a day to see how responsible he is, and that was actually so bizarre that it worked and offered a lot of comedic bits. But then there's episodes that are just too simple and it makes it boring and useless with the rest of the show. Like instead of building the Oddballs world, the entire first episode is about a toaster. It is just incredibly boring, which obviously works as a filler idea. I mean, the Cuphead show was very much like that, but I think it would have been more beneficial to have the first episode be more of an introduction to James' characters and his life and maybe how he met the crocodile. But no, none of that at all. Apparently this episode had to be about them raising a toaster. I don't even care for these characters, let alone a toaster. This show feels as if it's perfected to be enjoyed by little kids, but in doing so does the exact opposite, and it feels like a factory-made Disney Nickelodeon show. This show creates really good designs, but refuses to build any of these characters or their personalities. Also, fun fact that I just found out, apparently the guy who helped write The Oddballs also wrote for Drake and Josh and iCarly. What? I can't count how many times I sat watching this show thinking, what is even happening? The pacing is just so weird, like it's not bad at all, but it introduces so many random ideas that have nothing to do with the main plot of the episode. So it just kind of feels like the writers and James forgot what the episode was even about and just started winging it halfway through each episode. The random unexpected humor just reaps into every crevice of the show. And then it also takes this approach of being very obvious with its comedy. Like this scene would have been 10 times funnier if the crocodile didn't point out the joke.
Smooth Jason texted me a picture of himself with last year's trophy. And he's wearing crocodile boots!
What's even more confusing to me is that this show will add the most random adult joke ever. It just comes out of nowhere and actually kind of saves the show for me.
How often is it that an astrophysicist gets to share a home with someone from the future?
Yeah, and your mom and I always talk about how great it would be to have a do-over.
Patrick, oversharing. Oversharing.
Oh my god. Oh my god!
Back to the positives, I actually really liked the murder episode. That was really strong. There were a lot of great jokes and a boy with two brains. You got Gordon Ramsay, you got scientific experiments, and it just kind of bounces back and forth from being dumb, then smart, to dumb, then smart. So that's kind of my pros and cons of these episodes. They work as entertainment, but everything else has no purpose to drive any more story, and therefore it makes for a really uninteresting experience. Like, granted, I know this show is for kids. That is the market he was going for and probably the target audience of his channel. Kids and young teens are the ones that have the time to watch this show and or buy his products and his books. But you also got to keep in mind that James has also made videos about being an adult and has had lots of comedy moments surrounding being an adult. So I definitely assume this show would have had a little bit more of both. A show kids can enjoy, but adults can still watch and find funny, like Phineas and Ferb and Gravity Falls, SpongeBob, every other cartoon that exists. That's not to say that older audiences can't enjoy this show, because there are episodes that actually have a smart idea to them, but the moments that feel more emotional and funny and mature, or actually make sense, is very few, so it's really hard to get to those parts. There is one episode where he kind of plays on the adult life, but it spends way too much time on this random salesman than actually playing on the joke of him feeling older. But the more you watch this show, the more apparent it is that it's for small children, and that's okay with me. It isn't a bad thing at all. Children have watched way worse. I am grateful they have this show that at least has some artistic value. It also could have been a lot worse for being a YouTuber show. This is the part of the video where I give you all my finishing thoughts and you shut up and accept my opinion. That's a joke. Finally, let's decide, is TheOdd1sOut a sellout? Now that's all based on how you like internet personalities. Some people miss when he was a simple YouTuber, but I also think that completely disregards the only person that matters in this situation, which is TheOdd1sOut. He has his own choice to decide what he wants to do with his creativity. Also, who knows if he even wants to be a YouTuber as his only thing? Maybe directing is his main goal, or being an author. But I also think, on the other hand, if you're going to take your opportunities, you should think a little harder about them instead of putting your name on them and calling it a day. Because putting your name on literally anything that pops in your radar is a surefire way to make yourself look less genuine. Because if the products you're making are lazy and or bad, then do you really deserve those opportunities? That's up to you guys to decide. Again, I don't think TheOdd1sOut is making terrible products, he just really needs to find a balance. Which is easier said than done. Okay, that's the end of the video. Stay awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's very different from a lot of my other videos, and I don't think I'll ever do another video like this on a YouTuber. I'm sorry if I came off a little meaner than I should have. I've been a fan of TheOdd1sOut since 2017. I don't hate this guy at all. This video was solely a look at the good and bad of a content creator making products. I'm gonna get back to making movie videos, including a very suggested one coming late October, early November, so look forward to that. If you want to support my channel, be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe check out the links in the description, including my Patreon. It really means a lot, and stay awesome.